TOEFL iBT Test Prep Planner. An 8-week plan to prepare for the TOEFL iBT test, including skill-building activities, sample TOEFL IB test questions, tips for success on test day and beyond. Contents. Congratulations! Chapter 1, Using the Planner. Chapter 2, About the TOEFL iBT test. Chapter 3, Reading. Chapter 4, Listening. Chapter 5, Speaking. Chapter 6, Writing. Chapter 7, Test Day and Beyond. Appendix 1, Sample Questions. Appendix 2, Sample Score Report. Appendix 3, Scoring Guides, Speaking. Appendix 4, Scoring Guides, Writing. Appendix 5, Additional Writing for an Academic Discussion Topics. Congratulations! You've made the right decision to take the TOEFL iBT test, the test that gives you the advantage over other English language tests. There's no question that the TOEFL iBT test is the most widely respected English language test in the world. TOEFL iBT scores are accepted by more than 13,000 universities and other institutions in over 160 countries, including Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United States, the UK, and all across Europe and Asia. This gives you the flexibility of sending your test scores to any of these destinations.
It's no wonder more than 40 million people have taken the TOEFL test since it was introduced in 1964. In fact, it's the only test developed with the help of leading universities that simulates the university classroom and campus life. Doing well on the TOEFL iBT test proves that you have academic reading, listening, speaking, and writing skills, and shows that you can effectively combine these skills to communicate your ideas in and out of the classroom. Preparing for the test helps you build the English skills you need to succeed academically and beyond. Skills that universities are looking for, and show that you can effectively combine these skills to communicate your ideas in and out of the classroom. Preparing for the test will help you build the English skills you need to succeed in an academic setting and beyond. TOEFL iBT Test Prep Planner Plan. The purpose of this TOEFL iBT Test Prep Planner is to help you understand how to prepare for the test effectively and to help you build the English skills you need to succeed. Chapter 1 provides you with a test preparation plan to use in the 8 weeks leading up to your test date. Chapter 2 gives you general information about the test and scoring. Chapters 3 through 6 provide more information about the 4 sections of the test, as well as activities you can do to build your skills. Chapter 7 tells you what to do on and after test day. We know that working with sample questions is essential to preparing for the test, so the planner includes sample questions from actual TOEFL iBT tests, with question types from each of the 4 skill sections. See Appendix 1. Sample the TOEFL iBT test. Want a better idea of what taking a TOEFL iBT test is like? Start your journey with a 40-minute sample of the test experience, where you will become more familiar with the content and structure found in the full-length, just under 2-hour test. Get started at ets.org/TOEFL/IBT/prepare. Create your free account at TOEFLTestReady.org.
Conquer test day with the TOEFL Test Ready TM Prep Portal. The purpose of this TOEFL iBT Test Prep Planner is to help you best prepare for the test and build the English skills you need to succeed. Performance in TOEFL Test Ready can help you accurately predict your score on test day. The better your performance in the portal, the more likely it is for you to achieve a higher TOEFL iBT score. FPT, Free Practice Test, includes free tailored study plans, an activity of the day, courses, and helpful tips. TPO, TOEFL Practice Online or Mock Tests, includes section tests, section practice, focused practice, and continuous progress tracking. TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test, includes deeper skill insights, performance feedback, curated preparation recommendations, and more additional features. The overwhelming majority of learners we surveyed reported that the new test prep offerings and features within TOEFL Test Ready boosted their confidence, improved their skills and increased their readiness for the TOEFL iBT test too. Other resources that you may find helpful. TOEFL website at ets.org/TOEFL. TOEFL iBT videos at youtube.com/TOEFLtv. Self-paced TOEFL iBT prep course at edx.org/learn/test-prep/educational-testing-service-TOEFL- our test preparation the insider's guide. Online TOEFL iBT tutoring services with Preply tutors at preply.com. One source, statistics gathered from 765 users who also took the TOEFL iBT test, China, India, and the US. Two source, survey of 765 users across China, India, and the US. The path to your TOEFL destination. The process of getting into the college or university of your choice can be complex. Breaking it down into the following simple steps can help. 1. Choose your destinations. If you don't know where to apply, choose from more than 13,000 institutions in over 160 countries with the TOEFL destinations search at ets.org/TOEFL/test-takers/ibt/where-to-study.
2. Know your destination deadlines and requirements. Research application deadlines and score requirements for each of your university or college destinations. You can start your score requirement research with the TOEFL destination search and then contact the institution for more specific requirements. If you're applying for postgraduate studies, find out if your institution requires the GRE or other tests. You can go to the GRE website at ets.org/GRE for more information. 3. Decide how, when, and where to take the test. Choose your preferred testing format and test date. Test at home or at one of our many testing locations in over 200 countries. Find more information on available testing formats at ets.org/TOEFL/test-takers/ibt/about/testing-options. 4. Register for the TOEFL IB test 3 to 4 months before your test date. You can register online through your ETS account or by phone. Go to ets.org/TOEFL/test-takers/ibt/register for more information on how to register. 5. Prepare and practice. Use this TOEFL iBT test prep planner combined with the official practice offerings in TOEFL Test Ready to earn your best score on test day. Chapter 1. Using the planner. You've been studying English for some time now, so you've developed a level of proficiency in your reading, listening, speaking, and writing skills. Now you'll want to make sure you're familiar with the test format and that you're ready to do your best. This planner gives you test information, sample questions and activities to build your skills, and much more. To supplement the planner materials, we encourage you to purchase these additional resources at TOEFLtestready.org. TOEFL Practice Online Mock Tests. Experience the real test and receive scores and feedback within 24 hours. The official guide to the TOEFL iBT test. This book provides practice opportunities with hundreds of real TOEFL iBT questions and includes 4 full-length, authentic practice tests.
It is available in both ebook and print formats. For more TOEFL iBT test preparation resources, visit ets.org/TOEFL/ibt/prepare. Getting started. Between now and test day, it's important that you surround yourself with English and use it as much as possible. Please keep in mind that last-minute memorizing and cramming are not good ways to prepare for the TOEFL iBT test. Instead, we've provided you with a plan to help you thoroughly prepare for the test in the 8 weeks leading up to test day. The chart on the following pages indicates each week's objective, tasks to complete, and resources to help you complete them, as well as a checklist so you can check off each task as you complete it. Following is the actual order of the test sections: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. The planner leads the chapters with speaking, followed by reading, listening, and writing, because speaking is often the skill students are least familiar and comfortable with. However, you may wish to change this order to work on improving your weakest skills first. Week 1 Objectives and Tasks. First, determine your target scores by researching the score requirements of your TOEFL destination institution. Next, familiarize yourself with the test by using FPT, Free Practice Test. Read Chapter 2 about the TOEFL iBT test and then try out test questions in the TOEFL iBT Free Practice Test at TOEFL Test Ready. Then, learn from other test experiences by networking with students who have taken the test. You can do this by following TOEFL on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, WeChat, Naver, Weibo, and other platforms. After that, take a complete TOEFL iBT mock test using TPO, TOEFL Practice Online. Go to Test Ready to purchase and practice tests, complete the mock test, and review your performance to identify which skills require more focus. Next, chat with your session technicians if needed and add any questions you have about the test experience.
Also, record your scores for reading, listening, speaking, writing, and total in the score section. Finally, purchase TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test. This official guide includes hundreds of TOEFL practice questions and practice tests, and it is recommended to purchase the book online or from a campus bookstore. Week 2 Objectives and Tasks. First, learn about the speaking section by reading Planner Chapter 5, Speaking. Next, view and experience sample speaking questions by picking 3 general activities and 3 targeted activities from Chapter 5 to work on your speaking skills. Then, use TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test, and study the speaking chapter in the official guide for more practice. For additional practice with deeper insights and performance feedback, use the section practice available at TOEFLtestready.org. After that, practice your speaking skills by again selecting 3 general activities and 3 targeted activities from Chapter 5 and completing them as Activities 1 through Activity 6. Finally, record the completion of Activity 1, Activity 2, Activity 3, Activity 4, Activity 5, and Activity 6 in the completed section. Week 3 Objectives and Tasks. First, learn about the reading section by reading Planner Chapter 3, Reading. Next, practice your reading skills by reviewing sample reading questions in Planner Appendix 1 as part of your plan. Then, continue to practice your reading skills by picking 3 general activities and 3 targeted activities from Chapter 3 to work on your reading skills. After that, use TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test, and study the reading chapter in the official guide for more practice. For additional practice with deeper insights and performance feedback, use the section practice available at TOEFLtestready.org. Finally, complete and record Activity 1, Activity 2, Activity 3, Activity 4, Activity 5, and Activity 6 in the completed section.
Week 4 Objectives and Tasks. First, learn about the listening section by reading Planner Chapter 4. Listening. Next, view and experience sample listening questions by reviewing sample listening questions in Planner Appendix 1 as part of your plan. Then, practice your listening skills by picking 3 general activities and 3 targeted activities from Chapter 4 to work on your listening skills. After that, use TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test, and study the listening chapter in the official guide for more practice. For additional practice with deeper insights and performance feedback, use the section practice available at TOEFLtestready.org. Finally, complete and record Activity 1, Activity 2, Activity 3, Activity 4, Activity 5, and Activity 6 in the completed section. Week 5 Objectives and Tasks. First, learn about the writing section by reading Planner Chapter 6. Writing. Next, view and experience sample writing questions by seeing sample writing questions in Planner Appendix 1 as part of your plan. Then, review the writing scoring guides in Planner Appendix 4 to understand what different score levels mean. After that, read sample responses and raters' comments in Appendix 1 to help identify your current level and understand what a response at your desired level looks like. Refer to the scoring guides as you read. Next, practice your writing skills by picking 3 general activities and 3 targeted activities to work on your writing skills. After that, use TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test, and study the writing chapter in the official guide for more practice. For additional practice with deeper insights and performance feedback, use the section practice available at TOEFLtestready.org. Finally, complete and record Activity 1, Activity 2, Activity 3, Activity 4, Activity 5, and Activity 6 in the completed section. Week 6 Objectives and Tasks. First, plan for test day by reading Planner Chapter 7.
Test day and beyond and gather the documents you will need to take with you. Next, take a complete TOEFL iBT practice test to measure your progress by using TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test. Follow the instructions in the guide to calculate your scaled scores for the reading and listening sections. Time yourself for each section and try to simulate the actual testing experience. Record your reading and listening scores in the score section. Then, get evaluations for speaking and writing by asking a teacher or tutor to evaluate your responses in the speaking section of the practice test using the scoring guides in Appendix 3 of the planner. Also, ask a teacher or tutor to evaluate your responses in the writing section using the scoring guides in Appendix 4 of the planner. Record your speaking and writing scores in the score section. After that, practice more on your weaker skills by reviewing the planner chapters that correspond to your weaker skills. Complete 3 additional activities for each of your weaker skills. Finally, use TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test, for more practice and target specific question types that you find most difficult by using the focused practice available at TOEFLtestready.org. Record the completion of Activity 1, Activity 2, and Activity 3 in the completed section. Week 7 Objectives and Tasks. First, take a second complete TOEFL iBT mock test to establish your readiness for test day by using TPO, TOEFL Practice Online, at TOEFLtestready.org. Add all of your section scores to calculate your total score, and record your scores for reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Next, use timed mode to simulate the actual testing experience while taking the practice test. Then, review the directions for each section as you go through the practice test to make sure you clearly understand the instructions. After that, compare your new scores to the scores from your online mock test taken earlier, such as the test from week 2.
Decide which of the 4 skills reading, listening, speaking, or writing you need to focus on the most. Finally, continue preparing by focusing on improving your weaker skills using the planner, TOEFL Test Ready, and the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test. Week 8 Objectives and Tasks. First, continue preparing by focusing on improving your weaker skills using the planner, TOEFL Test Ready, and the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test. Next, take another complete practice test by using TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test. Follow the instructions in the guide to calculate your reading and listening scaled scores, and record your reading and listening scores. Time yourself for each section and try to simulate the actual testing experience. Then, get evaluations for speaking and writing by asking a teacher or tutor to evaluate your speaking responses using the scoring guides in Appendix 3 of the planner. Also, ask a teacher or tutor to evaluate your writing responses using the scoring guides in Appendix 4 of the planner, and record your speaking and writing scores. After that, review Planner Chapter 7, Test Day and beyond again to make sure you understand the test day process. Next, make sure you have a photo ID that exactly matches the name you used when you registered. Check with your TOEFL iBT Test Center or website for the specific ID requirements that apply to you depending on your testing location and citizenship. Then, return to your ETS account online and check for any changes in your appointment details. If you are testing at a test center, get directions to your testing site and make transportation plans in advance. Finally, if you are testing at home, make sure you meet all of the equipment and environment requirements listed on the ETS website. Extra point. First, determine your target scores by researching the requirements of your chosen institutions and become familiar with the test format by reading the planner chapters and trying free practice.
Questions. Next, improve your speaking, reading, listening, and writing skills week by studying the related chapters, reviewing sample questions, and completing 3 general and 3 targeted activities for each skill. Use TPO, TOEFL Practice Online, and TOG, the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test, regularly for extra practice and performance feedback. Then, take full mock tests to measure your progress, calculate your scores, and identify your weaker skills. Ask a teacher or tutor to evaluate your speaking and writing responses using the official scoring guides. Continue practicing more on weaker areas and complete additional activities to improve your performance. Finally, in the last weeks, take another full practice test to confirm your readiness, review test day procedures, prepare your required ID and documents, check your test appointment details, and make transportation or equipment arrangements depending on whether you test at a center or at home. Chapter 2 about the TOEFL iBT test. The TOEFL iBT test measures the English language skills important for effective communication in an academic setting. It consists of 4 sections: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. The test is just under 2 hours long with no break and can be taken 2 ways, at a test center or at home. The TOEFL iBT test uses integrated tasks that require you to combine skills just as you would in a real academic setting. The integrated questions ask you to read, listen, and then speak in response to a question. Listen and then speak in response to a question. Read, listen, and then write in response to a question.
Test format. The following chart shows the number of questions and the estimated timing for each section of the test. The time limit for each section varies according to the number of questions. The reading section includes 2 passages, with 10 questions each, and the estimated time for this section is 35 minutes. The listening section includes 3 lectures, with 6 questions each, and 2 conversations, with 5 questions each. The estimated time for this section is 36 minutes. The speaking section includes 4 tasks, which consist of 1 independent task and 3 integrated tasks, and the estimated time for this section is 16 minutes. The writing section includes 1 integrated writing task and 1 writing for an academic discussion task, and the estimated time for this section is 29 minutes. Test administration. The TOEFL iBT test at a test center is administered via the internet at secure, authorized TOEFL test centers around the world. If you prefer a traditional test environment, a test center is the best option for you. The TOEFL iBT Home Edition is the same TOEFL iBT test you would take at a test center, just taken from the quiet and privacy of your own home and monitored online by a human proctor. It's trusted and accepted by universities worldwide. Before you register to test at home, make sure your testing area meets the equipment and environment requirements at ets.org/TOEFL/test-takers/ibt/register/at-home-requirements. Instructions for answering questions are given with each section. You can take notes throughout the entire test. At the end of testing, all notes are destroyed or erased in view of the proctor to ensure test security. For the speaking section, you will speak into a microphone. Responses are recorded and sent to the ETS online scoring network where they are scored by a combination of AI and human raters. The TOEFL iBT test ensures fair and accurate results with a combination of artificial intelligence and human scoring.
All human raters are trained and certified by ETS, and are continuously monitored throughout the day each time they rate. At the end of the test, your reading and listening sections are scored instantly. These unofficial scores can give you an idea of how you did on the test. You can then choose to report or cancel your scores. For more information on TOEFL iBT testing options, visit ets.org/TOEFL/test-takers/ibt/about/testing-options. About test scores. Score scales. The TOEFL iBT test provides scores in 4 skill areas: reading 0 to 30, listening 0 to 30, speaking 0 to 30, writing 0 to 30. Total score 0 to 120. The total score is the sum of the 4 section scores. Score reports. Your score report provides information about your readiness to participate and succeed in academic studies in an English-speaking setting. Score reports include section scores and total score from a single test date. My best scores, which are the combination of your best scores for each section from all valid TOEFL iBT test dates in the past 2 years. You will receive your official score date at the end of the test. This date is approximately 4 to 8 days after your test date. You can view your scores online free of charge in your ETS account. Paper copies are mailed shortly after the scores are posted online if you opted to receive a hard copy. Please see Appendix 2 for a sample test taker score report. You can also download and print your PDF test taker score report. The PDF will be available in your account within 8 days of your test date. Colleges, universities, and agencies can also view your scores online and/or receive electronic or paper score reports when you have selected them as score recipients. You can do this free of charge for up to 4 score recipients when you register, or anytime up to 10 p.m. local time on the day before your test, or you can do it after the test for a small fee. See Chapter 7 for more information.
Enhanced score reporting. After you take your TOEFL iBT test, you'll receive more than just a score. TOEFL iBT Enhanced Score Reporting provides you with personalized feedback and performance insights to help you focus future studying efforts and realize your academic dreams, including your proficiency level for each section of the test, feedback on which reading and listening question types you've successfully demonstrated, and which are still developing, a closer look at your speaking and writing skills, with insights into your language use, grammar, mechanics, and more. Sample high-scoring speaking and writing responses with explanations to help you practice and improve. Access these insights in your ETS account. These insights are not available for TOEFL iBT tests taken at test centers in mainland China. Score requirements. Each institution sets its own requirements for TOEFL iBT scores. These minimums depend on factors such as the applicant's field of study, the level of study, undergraduate or graduate, whether the applicant will be a teaching assistant, and whether the institution offers English as a second language support for its students. We advise you to check with your particular program or department at your target destination to find out if they are any special score requirements. Some institutions set section requirements, as well as total score minimums. Accommodations. Test takers with disabilities or health-related needs can request accommodations, including time extensions. Accommodations must be approved by ETS before you can register for the test. For more information about accommodations, please go to ets.org/TOEFL/IBT/register/disabilities.
Chapter 3 Reading. Academic Reading Skills. The reading section measures your ability to understand university-level academic texts and passages. In academic settings around the world, students are expected to read and understand information from textbooks and other academic materials written in English. The following are 3 purposes for academic reading. Reading to find information. Effectively scanning text for key facts and important information. Basic comprehension. Understanding the general topic or main idea, major points, important facts and details, vocabulary in context, and pronoun usage. Making inferences about what is implied in a passage. Reading to learn. Recognizing the organization and purpose of a passage. Understanding relationships between ideas. Organizing information into a category chart or a summary in order to recall major points and important details. Reading section description. TOEFL iBT reading passages are excerpts from university-level textbooks that would be used in introductions to a discipline or topic. The excerpts are changed as little as possible because the goal of the test is to assess how well you can read the kind of writing that is used in an academic environment. The reading material includes 2 reading passages, with 10 questions per passage, and the estimated time to complete this section is 35 minutes. Reading passages. The passages will cover a variety of different subjects. You don't need to be familiar with the topic of a passage. All the information you need to answer the questions will be in the passage itself. Often passages present information about the topic from more than one perspective or point of view. This is something you should note as you read, because you will usually be asked at least one question that allows you to show that you have understood the general organization of the passage. You must read through or scroll to the end of a passage before receiving questions on that passage.
Once the questions appear, the passage is shown on the left side of the computer screen. The questions are on the right. Reading question formats. There are 3 question formats in the reading section. Questions with 4 choices and a single answer in traditional multiple choice format. Questions with 4 choices and a single answer that ask you to insert a sentence where it fits best in a passage. Reading to learn questions with more than 4 choices and more than one correct answer. Reading to learn questions test your ability to recognize how the passage is organized and to understand the relationships among facts and ideas in different parts of the passage. For these questions, you're asked to sort information and place the text options provided into a category chart or summary. The summary questions are worth up to 2 points each. The chart questions are worth up to 3 points if there are 5 options presented, and up to 4 points if there are 7 options presented. Reading skills practice. You can improve your English reading skills by reading regularly, especially university textbooks or other materials that cover a variety of subject areas, such as sciences, social sciences, arts, business, and are written in an academic style. The internet is one of the best resources for reading material, but books, magazines, or journals of any kind are very helpful as well. It's best to include material that is more academic in style, the kind that would be found in university courses. Complete these week 3 tasks and update the checklist on page 7. Plan. Review sample reading questions in Planner Appendix 1. TOG. Use the reading chapter in the official guide to the TOEFL test for more practice. Tip. Reading as much as possible in English is an essential part of building your reading skills.
General reading activities. You might try these general activities to practice your reading skills. Increase your vocabulary by keeping a journal of new words. Group word lists by academic subject areas, such as biology, geology, psychology, and create flash cards to review the words frequently. Learn to recognize the meanings of prefixes, suffixes, and common roots of words. Study the organization of academic texts. Look for the main ideas and the supporting details and pay attention to the relationship between them. Notice how the end of one sentence relates to the beginning of the next sentence. Make a list of the important points of the passage and then write a summary of it. If the text is a comparison, be sure your summary reflects that. If the text argues 2 points of view, be sure both are reflected in your summary. Work with a friend to improve your reading skills. You read an article from a journal or magazine, and your friend reads a different article. Each person makes up 6 basic information questions: who, what, where, when, how, and why. Exchange articles, read the new article and answer each other's questions. Read a reading passage from the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test or from any academic text. Think about the main idea of each paragraph and then write a headline for each paragraph. The headline should be short, 5 to 8 words, and it should capture the main idea of the paragraph. Then write a 5 to 6 sentence summary of the entire passage. Make a copy of an article from a newspaper or from an academic text. Cut the text into paragraphs and then try to put the text back together. Look for words that give you clues about the ordering of the paragraphs to help you put the text back together. Work on increasing your reading speed. This can be done by timing yourself as you read. Read a short text, an article or short reading from a text, once and record the time it takes you to read it.
Then read it again and try to improve your reading speed. Set up a book club with your classmates or friends. Have each person choose something for everyone to read. Set up a schedule and discuss one reading at each meeting. Keep a reading log in which you write summaries or responses to text you read. Targeted activities. Reading to find information. Try these activities to practice for reading to find information questions. Scan passages to find and highlight key facts, dates, numbers, terms, and information. Look for words in a passage that have the same meaning. Highlight each one with the same color marker. Then look at the way the writer used these words with similar meanings. Targeted activities. Reading for basic comprehension. Try these activities to practice for reading for basic comprehension questions. Practice skimming a passage quickly to get a general impression of the main idea instead of carefully reading each word and each sentence. Practice reading the introductory paragraph, the first sentences of the following paragraphs and the concluding paragraph to get the gist of a passage. Develop the ability to skim quickly and identify major points. After skimming a passage, read it again more carefully and write down the main idea, major points, and important facts. Choose some unfamiliar words in a passage and guess the meaning from the context surrounding sentences. Then look the words up to confirm their meaning. Underline all pronouns, for example, he, him, they, them, etc., and identify the nouns to which they refer in the passage. Paraphrase individual sentences in a passage. Then paraphrase entire paragraphs. Targeted activities. Reading to learn. Whenever you read, identify the passage type, cause/effect, compare/contrast, classification, problem/solution, description, narration. Organize the information from the passage.
Make a list of the major points of the passage and the minor points that support them. If the passage categorizes information, create a chart and place the information in appropriate categories. Create an oral or written summary of the passage using the charts, lists, and outlines. Tip: you won't be asked to create charts on the test. Instead, a chart with possible answer choices will be provided, and you'll be asked to fill in the chart with the correct choices by creating practice charts. However, you can practice categorizing information, and soon will be able to do so with ease. Complete these Week 3 tasks and update the checklist on page 7. Pick 3 general activities and 3 targeted activities to work on your reading skills. For additional practice, check out the section test, section practice, and focus practice offerings in TOEFL Test Ready. Chapter 4: Listening. Academic listening skills. The listening section measures your ability to understand spoken English. In academic settings, you must be able to listen to lectures and conversations. Academic listening is typically done for one of the 3 following purposes. Listening for basic comprehension. Understand the main idea, major points, and important details related to the main idea. Listening for pragmatic understanding. 1. Recognize a speaker's attitude and degree of certainty. Recognize the function or purpose of what a speaker says. Connecting and synthesizing. 2. Information. Recognize the organization of information presented. Understand the relationships between ideas presented. For example, compare/contrast, cause/effect, or steps in a process. Make inferences and draw conclusions based on what is implied. Make connections among pieces of information in a conversation or lecture. Recognize topic changes in lectures and conversations, and recognize introductions and conclusions in lecture.
Pragmatic understanding, to understand a speaker's purpose, attitude, degree of certainty, etc. Synthesize, to combine information from 2 or more sources or place. Listening section description. Listening material in the test includes academic lectures and conversations in which the speech sounds very natural. You can take notes on any listening material throughout the entire test. Most of the questions that follow the lectures and conversations are traditional multiple-choice questions with 4 answer choices and a single correct answer. There are, however, some other types of questions. Multiple-choice questions with more than one correct answer, for example, 2 answers out of 4 or more choices. Questions that require you to put in order events or steps in a process. Questions that require you to match objects or text to categories in a table. The listening material includes 3 lectures, each 3 to 5 minutes long, with 6 questions per lecture, and 2 conversations, each about 3 minutes long, with 5 questions per conversation. The estimated time to complete the listening section is 35 minutes. Academic lectures. The lectures in the TOEFL iBT test reflect the kind of listening and speaking that occurs in the classroom. In some of the lectures, the professor does all or almost all of the talking, with an occasional comment by a student. In other lectures, the professor may engage the students in discussion by asking questions that are answered by the students. The photos that accompany the lectures indicate whether one person or several people will be speaking. Conversations in an academic setting. The conversations in the TOEFL iBT test may take place during an office meeting with a professor or teaching assistant, or during a service encounter with university staff. The contents of the office conversations are generally academic in nature or related to course requirements.
Service encounters could involve conversations about a housing payment, registering for a class, or requesting information at the library. The photos that accompany the conversations help you imagine the setting and the roles of the speakers. Listening skills practice. Listening to English frequently and reading a wide variety of academic materials is a good way to increase vocabulary and improve listening skills. Watching movies and television shows provides excellent opportunities to build listening skills. You are typically more engaged when you listen to entertaining material. Movies, television shows, and live interviews are especially useful because they also provide visual reinforcement and cues. Recorded books, lectures, and presentations are equally valuable. Many public libraries and most universities have their public lectures available online. Lectures with transcripts are particularly helpful. The internet is a great resource. For listening material, visit websites such as npr.org, cnn.com/services/podcasting, youthradio.org, BBC, co.uk/radio, and bbc.uk/world service/learning English. Tip: don't memorize low frequency technical vocabulary. These words are usually defined within a text or listening passage. Focus on learning high frequency language that crosses all disciplines. Complete these week 4 tasks and update the checklist on page 5. Plan. Review sample listening questions in Planner Appendix 1. Kyoji. Use the listening chapter in the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test for more practice. General listening activities. You might try these general activities to build your listening skills. Listen to different kinds of material on a variety of topics, of increasing length and difficulty. Start with recordings on familiar topics, and gradually progress to topics that are new to you. First, listen to conversations, television shows, and movies, and then listen to programs with academic content such as NPR and BBC broadcasts. Start with short segments and progress to longer segments. Listen several times to each recording. For beginners, listen first with English subtitles if they are available. Then without subtitles, listen for the main ideas and key details. Listen again, focusing on the connections between ideas, the structure of the talk, and/or the speaker's attitudes. Try to distinguish fact from opinion. Listen actively. As you listen, take notes on the main ideas and important details. Write down keywords only, not every word. Keep a log of the new words and expressions you hear. Check the spelling and meaning. In a dictionary, ask yourself about the basic information presented in the recording. Who, what, when, where, why, how. To make predictions about what you will hear next. Use your notes to summarize what you've heard. Copy a script from an online news story, lecture or talk, movie or podcast. Delete or cover every 5th word. On the script, listen to the recording and try to write in the missing words. Listen to the news or a lecture online and read the script at the same time. Listen closely and highlight on the script any words that the speaker stresses. Try to identify why the speaker stresses specific words. Chapter 4 Listening 2020. Listen to a portion of a lecture or talk and create a list of important points. Use the list to write a brief Summary. Gradually listen to the entire lecture and combine the summaries for each part into a summary of the whole lecture.
Targeted activities. Listening for pragmatic understanding. As you listen to movies, television shows and lectures, think about what each speaker hopes to accomplish. What is the purpose of the lecture or conversation? For example, is the speaker apologizing, complaining, inviting, or making suggestions? Notice each speaker's style. Is the language formal or casual? How certain does each speaker sound? Is the speaker's voice calm or emotional? What does the speaker's tone of voice tell you? Notice the speaker's degree of certainty. How sure is the speaker about the information? Does the speaker's tone of voice indicate something about his or her degree of certainty? Pay attention to the way stress and intonation patterns are used to convey meaning. Replay segments multiple times, listening for shades of meaning. This will help you understand a speaker's point of view. Listen for changes in topic. What transitions are used? Listen for repetitions of ideas and paraphrases. How do speakers reinforce their points?
Targeted activities. Listening to connect and synthesize ideas. As you are listening to recorded lectures or talks, think about how what you're hearing is organized. Listen for the signal words that indicate the introduction, major steps or ideas, examples, and the conclusion or summary. Identify the relationships between ideas. Possible relationships include cause, effect, compare, contrast, and steps in a process. Listen for transitions that show connections and relationships between ideas. How do speakers introduce and organize their points? Predict what information or idea will be expressed next. Stop the recording at various points. Summarize what you just heard or what you've heard up to that point. Practice listening for and comparing two speakers' viewpoints. Which speaker supports the idea and which is against it? What words do speakers use to support their ideas? Are the words mainly positive or negative? Tip. Understanding phrasal verbs and common idioms will help you with the listening section of the TOEFL iBT test. Because phrasal verbs and idioms are often used in informal conversations. Complete these week 4 tasks and update the checklist on page 8. Pick 3 general activities and 3 targeted activities from Chapter 4 to work on your listening skills. For an experienced doser to the actual test, use the section test, section practice, and focused practice offerings in TOEFL Test Ready.
Chapter 5 Speaking. Academic speaking skills. The speaking section measures your ability to speak English effectively in academic settings, during class as well as outside the classroom. The tasks in this section resemble the real-life situations that students encounter. During a class, students are expected to respond to questions, participate in academic discussions, summarize what they read and hear, and express their views on topics under discussion. Outside the classroom, students participate in casual conversations, express their opinions and communicate with people in such places as the bookstore, the library, the cafeteria, and the housing office. Speaking section description. In the speaking section, you will be asked to speak on a variety of topics that draw on personal experience, campus-based situations, and academic content. The speaking section is approximately 16 minutes long and includes 4 questions. The first question is called the independent speaking task because it requires you to draw entirely on your own ideas, opinions, and experiences when you respond. The other 3 questions are called integrated speaking tasks because they require you to integrate your English language skills, listening and speaking, or listening, reading and speaking, just as you must during class and outside the classroom. Speaking task types, sentence form. The speaking section includes 4 tasks:
consisting of 1 independent task and 3 integrated tasks, with an estimated total time of 16 minutes. First, the independent task choice asks you to make and defend a personal choice between 2 contrasting behaviors or courses of action.
Next, the integrated task 2, campus situation read, listen, speak, includes a reading passage of 75 to 100 words that presents a campus-related issue. It also includes a listening passage of 60 to 80 seconds, 150 to 180 words, that comments on the issue in the reading passage. This question asks you to summarize the speaker's opinion within the context of the reading passage. The preparation time is 30 seconds, and the response time is 60 seconds. Then, integrated task 3, academic course read, listen, speak, includes a reading passage of 75 to 100 words that broadly defines a term, process, or idea from an academic subject. It also includes an excerpt from a lecture of 60 to 90 seconds, 150 to 220 words, that provides examples and specific information to illustrate the concept from the reading passage. This question asks you to combine and convey important information from both the reading passage and the lecture excerpt. The preparation time is 30 seconds, and the response time is 60 seconds. Finally, integrated task 4, academic course listen, speak, includes a listening passage of 90 to 120 seconds, 230 to 280 words, that explains a term or concept and gives examples to illustrate it. This question asks you to summarize the lecture and demonstrate an understanding of the relationship between the examples and the overall topic. The preparation time is 20 seconds, and the response time is 60 seconds. Speaking responses. Like all the other sections of the TOEFL iBT test, the speaking section is delivered via computer. For all speaking tasks, you'll use a microphone. For speaking questions that involve listening, you'll hear short spoken passages or conversations. For speaking questions that involve reading, you'll read short written passages on your computer screen. You can take notes throughout the speaking section and use your notes when you respond to the questions. Your responses will be recorded and sent to ETS for scoring.
How speaking responses are scored. The speaking section is scored by a combination of AI scoring and multiple, highly trained human raters to offer a complete and accurate picture of your ability. Minimize the rater bias that can occur with face-to-face interviews. Ensure consistency and the highest quality. This means that raters listen for various features in your response and assign a single score based on the overall skill you display in your answer. Although scoring criteria vary somewhat depending on the question, the raters generally will be listening for the following features in your answer. Delivery, how clear and fluid your speech is, including good pronunciation, natural pacing and natural sounding intonation patterns. Language use, how effectively you use grammar and vocabulary to convey your ideas. Topic development, how fully you answer the question and how coherently you present your ideas. Good responses generally use all or most of the time allotted, and the relationship between ideas and the progression from one idea to the next is clear and easy to follow. For more detailed criteria, see the speaking scoring guides in Appendix 3. These will help you better understand how responses are evaluated. It's important to note that your responses are not expected to be perfect, and high-scoring responses may contain occasional errors and minor lapses in any of the 3 areas previously described. General speaking activities. Try these activities to help build your skills. Practice using language for giving opinions, language for describing problems and solutions, and language to compare and contrast. Learn to use idiomatic and informal speech naturally and appropriately by listening to native English speakers and trying to mimic their expressions. Practice using contractions, such as it's, there's, I'm, and so on, in order to sound more natural when speaking.
Work on pronunciation, including word stress, intonation patterns, and pauses. Targeted activities, independent speaking. Try the following activities to build the skills you'll need for the independent speaking task. Make a list of topics that are familiar to you and practice speaking about them. The topics can be academic or non-academic, sports, hobbies, travel, etc. Think for 20 seconds about what you did yesterday, then recount your experiences in 1 minute. Remember to use the past tense of verbs and use connecting words and phrases, such as first, then, and while I was. Think for 20 seconds about what you plan to do tomorrow, then talk about it for 1 minute. Think of a story with which you are familiar. Tell the story to several different people. Try to tell the story faster each time. Collect a number of pictures from magazines and newspapers. Look at each picture, then describe it. In 1 minute. Describe the same thing more than once, using different adjectives and adding details. State an opinion or a preference for something familiar and present clear, detailed reasons for your choice. Use connecting words or phrases to help explain your opinion, for example, the reason I prefer, or this is important to me because. Make a recommendation about a topic of concern or interest to you and explain why your idea is the best way to proceed. Think about topics related to student life, for example, the types of classes you enjoy taking or the best place to study. For each topic, write down 2 reasons to explain your preference and speak on this topic for 1 minute. Write down questions about various topics on slips of paper. Each day, choose one randomly and practice giving a 1-minute response to the question you have selected. Repeat your responses to each question 2 or 3 times to build fluency. Targeted activities, integrated speaking. These activities can help build the skills you'll need for the integrated speaking tasks.
Read an article or listen to a talk on an issue that interests you, for example, the environment. Prepare an outline for a 1-minute opinion speech about the article or talk. Your outline should include your opinion, 2 points to support your opinion and 1 detail or reason to support each point. Find campus newspaper articles online. After reading the articles, express your opinions about them to a friend. Read a short article from a newspaper or a textbook. Write down 2 or 3 questions and then answer them orally. Record your answers to the questions. Find a textbook in English that includes study questions at the end of each chapter. Practice answering the questions orally. Start by reading about subjects with which you're familiar and later move on to less familiar subjects. Pay attention to the way stress and intonation patterns are used to convey meaning. Replay segments multiple times, listening for shades of meaning. This will help you understand a speaker's point of view. Listen for changes in topic. What transitions are used? Listen for repetitions of ideas and paraphrases. How do speakers reinforce their points? Find listening and reading material on the same topic. The material can contain similar or different views. The listening material can be a news report on a current topic on TV or radio, and the reading material can be a newspaper or internet report. Take notes or create lists of important points on the listening and reading material. Keep in mind that the reading and listening materials on the test are very brief, so taking notes may not be necessary. Prepare separate oral summaries of the information in the listening and reading material. Practice paraphrasing using different words and grammatical structures. Combine the information from the reading and listening material and explain in writing how they relate. Later, practice explaining it orally using only your notes for reference.
State an opinion about the ideas and information presented in the reading and listening material and explain how they relate. If the reading and or listening material describes a problem, suggest and explain your own solution to the problem. Group speaking activities. Have fun trying these activities to practice your speaking skills with friends or a study group. Make note cards. For example, describe your favorite restaurant, your best friend, or an ideal house. Put the cards face down, choose one and respond in 45 seconds. Join a club whose members meet to converse in English about a topic such as movies, music, or travel. If a club doesn't exist in your area, start one. Invite fluent English speakers to join you. With a group, list opinion topics and write these on cards. Topics might include research papers versus oral presentations, laptops versus desktops, school uniforms versus wearing regular clothes to school, and so on. Each person chooses a card, prepares a 1-minute presentation, and then presents to the group. The speaker must support his or her opinion with reasons. The group can debate each topic. Divide group members into pairs. Have each pair of partners choose a common problem college students face and brainstorm 2 solutions to the problem. Each pair should prepare a role play in which one person describes the problem and the other provides the solutions and indicates which solution he or she prefers and why. Practice using transition words and phrases such as however, first, on the other hand, and in contrast to as. A way to help listeners follow your speech. With a group, write as many transitions as you can think of on cards. Each person must randomly choose a card and then create 2 sentences connected by the transition word on the card. You can use a timer and allow each person 30 seconds to respond.
Set up a discussion club with a group of friends. Each week, a member chooses a talk or a speech, available online or in audio or video form, and everyone in the group listens to it. When the group gets together, the leader for that week summarizes the talk or speech and leads a discussion on the topic. TPS. When you practice for the TOEFL iBT speaking section, take 15 to 30 seconds to think about what you're going to say before you speak. Write down a few keywords and ideas and plan how you will organize your response. Don't attempt to write down exactly what you're going to say. You will not have time to do so during the test, and raters will be able to detect responses that are read and will give them a lower score. Record your responses and replay them. Evaluate your effort by asking yourself these questions. Did I complete the task? Did I speak clearly? Did I make grammatical errors? Did I use words correctly? Did I organize my ideas clearly and appropriately? Did I use the time effectively? Did I speak too quickly or too slowly? Did I pause too often? Also, ask an English teacher or tutor to evaluate your recordings using the appropriate TOEFL iBT speaking scoring guides from Appendix 3. Chapter 6 Writing. Academic Writing Skills. The writing section measures your ability to write in English in an academic setting. In all academic situations where writing in English is required, you must be able to present your ideas in a clear, well-organized manner. Often you'll need to write a paper or an essay response on an exam about what you've been learning in class. This requires combining information you've heard in lectures with what you've read in textbooks or other materials. For this type of writing, often referred to as integrated writing, you must be able to take notes on what you hear and read, and use your notes to organize information before writing.
Summarize, paraphrase and cite information accurately from source material. Write about the ways the information you heard relates to the information you read. You also must be able to express and support your opinions. In this type of writing, writing for an academic discussion, you share and support your opinion in response to the professor's question to the class. Your response should contribute to the discussion and can agree or disagree with classmates' ideas. For example, the professor may ask the class to think about important discoveries or inventions other than the computer or the cell phone. You could respond with your thoughts on plastics and the various benefits they bring. Writing section description. The writing section should take approximately 29 minutes. You'll write responses to 2 writing tasks, an integrated writing task and a writing for an academic discussion task. The integrated writing task comes first because it requires some listening. When you finish the integrated writing task, which takes about 20 minutes, work on the writing for an academic discussion task, which you will have 10 minutes to complete. Writing tasks, sentence form. In the writing section, you will type your responses on a computer keyboard, and your responses will be sent to ETS for scoring. Task 1, Integrated Writing Task, Read a Listen or Write, begins with reading a short text of about 230 to 300 words on an academic topic, and the reading time is 3 minutes. You may take notes on the reading passage. The reading passage then disappears from the screen during the lecture that follows, but it reappears when you begin writing so you can refer to it as you work. Next, you listen to a speaker discuss the same topic from a different perspective. The listening passage is about 230 to 300 words long, and the listening time is 2 minutes.
The listening passage provides additional information related to points made in the reading passage, and you may take notes while listening. After that, you write a summary in connected English prose of the important points made in the listening passage and explain how these points relate to the key points of the reading passage. The suggested response length is 150 to 225 words, but there is no penalty for writing more as long as your response answers the task. Task 2, Writing for an Academic Discussion Task, presents you with an online academic discussion. A professor posts a question about a topic, and some classmates respond with their ideas. You read the professor's post and the classmates' responses before writing your own response. Then, you may refer to or engage with your classmates' posts or introduce entirely new ideas in response to the professor's question. Your response must be relevant to the discussion and must clearly contribute your own ideas in your own words. Finally, discussion topics usually ask whether you agree or disagree with a position or argument, or ask you to choose between different positions or arguments, evaluate your own opinion, and explain it. There is no maximum length for your response, but a good response should be at least 100 words. How writing responses are scored. The writing section is also scored by a combination of AI scoring and multiple, highly trained human raters. Your responses are rated on a scale of 0 to 5 according to the writing scoring guides in Appendix 4. Your response to the integrated writing task is scored on the quality of your writing, organization, appropriate, and precise use of grammar and vocabulary, and the completeness and accuracy of the content. Your response to the writing for an academic discussion task is scored on how relevant and clearly expressed. Your contribution is to the online discussion and whether it demonstrates consistent facility in the use of language.
For both of the writing tasks, the raters recognize that your response is a first draft. You're not expected to produce a perfect response or comprehensive essay about a specialized topic. You can receive a high score with responses that contain some errors. Writing skills practice. Planning before you write is an important skill to develop. During your university or college studies, you will have to write papers and essay exams that will require such skills. General writing activities. Be sure you have developed fundamental writing skills before you progress to more targeted practice. Check to see if you can do the following. Learn the conventions of spelling, punctuation, and paragraph creation. Study the organization of good paragraphs and essays. A good paragraph discusses one main idea. This idea is usually written in the first sentence, which is called the topic sentence. In essay writing, each paragraph should discuss one aspect of the main idea of the essay. Before you write, think about verb tenses that logically fit your topic. Are you writing about something in the past? Then you might use the simple past, present and past perfect, past continuous, tenses that naturally fit together. Read your writing 3 or 4 times, each time, check for a different thing. Make a checklist of errors you commonly make, for example, verb tenses, run-on sentences, subject-verb agreement. Reread your writing and circle common, uninteresting expressions, for example, get, nice, things, stuff. In your second draft, replace these with stronger words and phrases, for example, obtain, pleasant objects, possessions. See how many alternate words you can come up with. Practice using transitions to show the relationship between ideas. Use words and phrases such as on the one hand or in conclusion to create a clear structure for your response.
Practice typing on a QWERTY keyboard, the type of computer keyboard used in English-speaking countries. The name comes from the first 6 letters in the top row of the keyboard. Tip: expand your vocabulary by doing crossword puzzles and other word games. These are available on sites like yourdictionary.com. This website also has a Word of the day. Targeted activities. In your academic classes, you must be careful never to plagiarize, copy another writer's words without acknowledging the source. Paraphrasing is an important skill because you are expressing ideas about something from source material in your own words. Practice paraphrasing words, phrases, sentences, and entire paragraphs frequently using the following activities. Learn to find synonyms. Pick 10 to 15 words or phrases in a passage and quickly think of synonyms without looking them up in a dictionary or thesaurus. Practice writing a sentence using the noun form of a word and then convey the same meaning using the verb form. Try paraphrasing 2 or 3 sentences. Later, move on to paraphrasing paragraphs and longer passages. Write a paraphrase of a reading passage using only your notes. If you haven't taken notes, write the paraphrase without looking at the original text. Check your paraphrase to make sure it's factually accurate and that you've used different words and grammatical structures. Targeted activities, integrated writing. You can use these activities to build the skills you'll need for the integrated writing task. Find a textbook in English that includes questions about the material at the end of a chapter and practice writing answers to the questions. Read academic articles and listen to related lectures.
Take notes in your primary language and then take notes in English. Make a list of the major points and important details. Use your list to write a summary of the major points and important details. Be sure to paraphrase using different words and grammatical structures. Ask your teacher to review your writing and help you correct your errors. Gradually decrease the time it takes you to read the material and write these summaries. Practice finding main points by listening to recorded lectures or talks online. Stop the recording about every 30 seconds to write out a short summary of what you heard. Replay the recording to check your summary. Read 2 articles on the same topic. Write a summary of each, and then explain the ways in which they are similar and the ways in which they are different. Listen to a recorded news story online. In a newspaper or online, read another story on the same news item. The material can provide similar or different views. Take notes on the material. Summarize both the written and spoken portions. Clearly identify which source you are referring to throughout your summary. Tip: randomly choose a word from your vocabulary log. Define the word, use it in a sentence, and see how many words with similar meanings you can list. Combine the information and discuss how the materials relate. Explain how the ideas are similar, how one idea expands upon another, or how the ideas differ or contradict each other. Watch a movie with a friend or go to a restaurant together. Ask your friend's opinion of the movie or restaurant. Take some notes. Read an online review of the same movie or restaurant. Write a response comparing your friend's opinions with the online review. Read an opinion or editorial piece from a newspaper. Interview a friend, classmate, family member, or teacher on the same topic. Write a response comparing your interview with the written response. Practice integrating all 4 language skills.
Listen to an online lecture and take notes. Then prepare both an oral and a written summary. Find and read a text on the same topic. Take notes. Then prepare both an oral and a written summary of the lecture and reading. Later, discuss the reading and lecture with a friend. Prepare a vocabulary list of the important words on the topic. Read an essay from an academic text or from the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test. Take notes on the main and supporting details. Use your notes to summarize the essay orally. Record your summary. Then listen to your summary to make sure you have included all the main points of the essay. Finally, write your own essay on the same topic. Tip: be sure to paraphrase. On the TOEFL iBT test, you will receive a score of 0 if you copy sentences from the reading passage. Targeted activities: Writing for an academic discussion. Try the following activities to build the skills you'll need for the writing for an academic discussion task. Make a list of familiar topics and practice writing about them. For each topic, state an opinion or a preference and then support it with evidence. Practice writing at least one discussion post for each topic. Be sure to take 10 minutes to write and revise each post. Try to write different posts on the same topic. Brainstorm a couple of ideas before you start writing and pursue the idea that seems the most promising. Do not spend too much time planning your response. Focus instead on giving your post good flow and coherence as you write it. Connect your ideas well and elaborate on them so the reader is clear about what your opinion is and why you hold it. Be sure to leave a bit of time at the end to revise your post and fix its flaws. Do not use memoized, formulaic, or vague language. Give the post your own voice and express your own ideas using your own words. Utilize the sample lectures in Appendix 1 or in the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test and write an opinionated response.
Read articles and essays written by professional writers that express opinions about an issue, such as a social, environmental, or educational issue. Identify the writer's opinions. Notice how the writer addresses possible objections to the opinions. Tips. When practicing the integrated writing response, plan your time carefully, for example, 2 to 3 minutes to plan, 15 minutes to write, 2 to 3 minutes to edit. Start your response with a strong topic statement that clearly shows the main point of the lecture. Show how the points made in the lecture relate to specific points made in the reading. Do not simply summarize the reading and the writing. Use the sample writing for an academic discussion topics in Appendix 5 of the planner and the official guide to the TOEFL iBT test to practice writing for the test. Time yourself, taking 10 minutes to read the question, plan your work and write your response. Review your response and ask yourself these questions. Did I complete the task? Did I write clearly? Did I make grammatical errors? Did I use words correctly? Did I organize my ideas clearly and coherently? Did I use the time effectively? Also, ask an English teacher or tutor to evaluate your essays and responses using the appropriate TOEFL iBT writing scoring guides from Appendix 4 and to give you feedback. Chapter 7 Test Day and Beyond. You've registered and practiced, and now you're ready to take the TOEFL iBT test. Here are some tips that will help make your test day go smoothly. Before test day, log into your ETS account to confirm the time and location of your test. If traveling, determine your route and how long it will take to arrive at your destination. For testing at a test center, you will want to arrive at least 30 minutes early for check-in. For testing at home, you will need to check in within 15 minutes of your scheduled appointment time. Be sure you have valid identification to present on test day.
The name on your ID must exactly match the name you used when you registered, excluding any accent marks. For more information on ID requirements, visit ets.org/TOEFL/ID. If testing at home, be sure your computer and test area meet the equipment and environmental requirements prior to your appointment. For more information, visit ets.org/TOEFL/IBT/at-home. Prepare your note-taking materials. You may use an erasable marker with a small whiteboard or a sheet of paper inside of a transparent sheet protector. Pens and pencils are not allowed. At the end of your test, you must show the proctor that all notes have been erased. Get plenty of rest, especially the night before. TOEFL iBT Test Day Tips. You've practiced hard and now you are ready for your big day. Here is some information to prepare you for the testing. Experience itself. 1. Getting ready. Set your alarm early. Give yourself plenty of time to get ready. If you have trouble getting up, ask a friend to give you a call. Eat a good meal. Don't skip a meal on test day. Eat something with protein and a piece of fruit to help your mind stay alert. Use the washroom ahead of time. The TOEFL iBT test takes just under 2 hours and there are no breaks. Make sure to bring your photo ID with you. 2. Arrival. What to expect when you arrive. At a test center, ets.org/TOEFL/test-takers/test-day/test-center-test-day. At home, ets.org/TOEFL/test-takers/test-day/at-home-test-day. Dress appropriately. Your ears and face need to remain visible throughout the test, not covered by a hat, hair or other items. Religious headwear is permitted if your ears remain visible during the test. Your picture will be taken and displayed on your official score report and shared with institutions that receive your scores. 3. Your testing area. Mobile devices, watches, personal items, food and drinks are not allowed in the testing area. For a full list of prohibited items, visit ets.org/TOEFL.
The TOEFL iBT test, sentence form. The reading section has an estimated timing of 35 minutes and includes 20 questions. In this section, you read passages and respond to questions. The listening section has an estimated timing of 36 minutes and includes 28 questions. In this section, you answer questions about brief lectures or classroom discussions. The speaking section has an estimated timing of 16 minutes and includes 4 tasks. In this section, you talk about a familiar topic and discuss material that you read and hear. The writing section has an estimated timing of 29 minutes and includes 2 tasks. In this section, you write responses based on what you read, listen to, and discuss in academic topics. The total length of the test is just under 2 hours. For more information, visit ets.org/TOEFL. Test-taking tips. Here are some test-taking strategies to follow during the test. Times. Know the directions in each section before the test by taking a practice test. This will help you avoid wasting time during the test. Times. Click Help to review the directions only when absolutely necessary. The test clock doesn't stop when help is used. Times. Carefully read each question. Some questions ask for more than one answer. Some questions include the word not, so they ask about a negative situation. Times. Don't panic. Concentrate on the current question only. Don't think about how you answered or should have answered other questions. Times. Avoid spending too much time on any one question. If you've thought about a question and you still don't know the answer, eliminate as many answer choices as possible. Then select the best remaining choice. Time. Space yourself so you have enough time to answer every question. Be aware of the time limit for every section. Task and budget enough time for each. You can hide the time clock, but check the clock periodically to monitor your progress. The clock will automatically alert you when 5 minutes remain in listening and reading as well as in writing. Times. The toolbar tells you how many questions you've answered and how many remain. Use this information to decide whether you need to go faster or slower. Times. Review in reading. You can go back to review and change your responses in the reading section by clicking Review. It's best to do this only after you've answered all the questions. At the end of your test, Times immediately upon completion of the test, you will receive your unofficial reading and listening scores. These scores will give you an idea of how you performed on the test. Times at this point you may choose to report or cancel your scores. Times if you choose to cancel your scores, your test will not be scored and your scores will not be sent to institutions. There is no refund if you choose to cancel your scores. Times if you choose to report your scores, you will be given the date you can expect to receive your official scores in your ETS account. Score reports. Score reports include Times section scores and total score from a single test date. Times My Best Scores, which are the combination of your best scores for each section from all valid TOEFL iBT tests taken in the past 2 years. Scores are reported online 4 to 8 days after the test. You can view your scores in your ETS account. Paper copies are mailed shortly after the scores are posted online if you opted to receive a hard copy. Please see Appendix 2 for a sample test taker score report. You can also download and print a PDF of your test taker score report. The PDF will be available in your ETS account shortly after your test. If you wish to receive your paper score report faster, we now offer express shipping to 75 countries and territories. A fee will apply. You can find more details about this service at ets.org/TOEFL/test-takers/IBT/scores/get-scores. Sending your scores. Colleges, universities and agencies also can view your scores online and/or receive paper score reports when you have selected them as score recipients. You can do this free of charge for up to 4 SCO.
4 score recipients when you register. Or anytime up to 10 p.m. local time on the day before your test. In addition to the 4 institutions included with your registration, you can send your scores to as many other institutions as you choose for a small fee. You can order additional score reports by logging into your ETS account online, by mail, or by fax. Go to ets.org/TOEFL for more information. Enhanced score reporting. After you take your TOEFL iBT test, you'll receive more than just a score. TOEFL iBT Enhanced Score Reporting provides you with personalized feedback and performance insights to help you focus future studying efforts and realize your academic dreams, including times your proficiency level for each section of the test, times feedback on which reading and listening question types you've successfully demonstrated and which are still developing, times a closer look at your speaking and writing skills, with insights into your language use, grammar, mechanics and more. Times sample high-scoring speaking and writing responses with explanations to help you practice and improve. You can access your personalized scoring feedback and insights in your ETS account. This is not available for tests taken at a test center in mainland China. Appendix 1 Sample Questions. Following are print versions of sample questions from each of the 4 skill sections. Reading section. Directions. The reading section measures your ability to understand academic passages in English. In this sample, you will read one passage and answer questions about it. On the real test, you will have 2 reading passages to read each, having 10 questions to answer. This should take approximately 35 minutes to complete.
Reading passage. Meteorite impact and dinosaur extinction. One substantial evidence suggests that the impacts of meteorites have had important effects on Earth, particularly in the field of biological evolution. Such impacts continue to pose a natural hazard to life on Earth. Twice in the 20th century, Large meteorite objects are known to have collided with Earth. If an impact is large enough, it can disturb the environment of the entire Earth and cause an ecological catastrophe. 5. A well-documented impact took place 65 million years ago at the end of the Cretaceous period of geological history. Some researchers argue that this impact was the cause of the mass extinction that occurred during that period, when as many as half the species on the planet became extinct. While there are a dozen or more mass extinctions in the geological record, the Cretaceous mass extinction has always intrigued paleontologists because it marks the end of the age of the dinosaurs. For tens of millions of years, those great creatures had flourished. Then, suddenly, they disappeared. The body that impacted Earth at the end of the Cretaceous period was a meteorite with a mass of more than a trillion tons and a diameter of at least 10 kilometers. Scientists first identified this impact in 1980 from the worldwide layer of sediment deposited from the dust cloud that enveloped the planet after the impact. This sediment layer is enriched in the rare metal iridium and other elements that are relatively abundant in a meteorite but very rare in 15. The crust of Earth, even diluted by the terrestrial material excavated from the crater, this component of meteorites is easily identified. By 1990, geologists had located the impact site itself in the Yucatan region of Mexico. The crater, now deeply buried in sediment, was originally about 200 kilometers in diameter. This impact released an enormous amount of energy, excavating a crater about twice as large as the lunar crater Tycho. The explosion lifted about 100 trillion tons of dust into the atmosphere, as can be determined by measuring 20 the thickness of the sediment layer formed when this dust settled to the surface. Such a quantity of material would have blocked the sunlight completely from reaching the surface, plunging Earth into a period of cold and darkness that lasted at least several months. The explosion is also calculated to have produced vast quantities of nitric acid and melted rock that sprayed out over much of Earth, starting widespread fires that must have consumed most terrestrial forests and grassland. Arguably, those environmental disasters could have been responsible for the mass extinction. 25. Including the death of the dinosaurs. It may not have been the sole cause, however, recent studies have found that volcanic eruptions also played an important role. Several other mass extinctions in the geological record have been tentatively identified with large impacts, but none is so dramatic as the Cretaceous event. But even without such specific documentation, it is clear that impacts of this size do occur and that their results can be catastrophic. What is a catastrophe for one group of living things, however, 30th may create opportunities for another group. Following each mass extinction, there is a sudden evolutionary burst as new species develop to fill the ecological niches opened by the event.
Impacts by meteorites represent one mechanism that could cause global catastrophes and seriously influence the evolution of life all over the planet. Those impacts, together with volcanic eruptions, probably explain the majority of all extinctions of species. Such a perspective fundamentally changes our view of biological evolution. The standard 35 criterion for the survival of a species is its success in competing with other species and adapting to slowly changing environments. Yet an equally important criterion is the ability of a species to survive random global ecological catastrophes. Earth is a target in a cosmic shooting gallery, subject to random violent events that were unsuspected a few decades ago. In 1991, the United States Congress asked NASA-registered trademark symbol to investigate the hazard posed today by large impacts on 40 Earth. The group conducting the study concluded from a detailed analysis that impacts from meteorites can indeed be hazardous. Although there is always some risk that a large impact could occur, careful study shows that this risk is quite small. 1. The word pose on line 2 is closest in meaning to A. Claim, B. Model, C. Assume, D. Present.
2. In paragraph 2, why does the author include the information that dinosaurs had flourished for tens of millions of years and then suddenly disappeared? A. To support the claim that the mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous is the best documented of the dozen or so mass extinctions in the geological record. B. To explain why as many as half of the species on Earth at the time are believed to have become extinct at the end of the Cretaceous. C. To explain why paleontologists have always been intrigued by the mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous. D. To provide evidence that an impact can be large enough to disturb the environment of the entire planet and cause an ecological disaster. Sample question. 3. Which of the following can be inferred from paragraph 3 about the location of the meteorite impact in Mexico? A. The location of the impact site in Mexico was kept secret by geologists from 1980 to 1990. B. It was a well-known fact that the impact had occurred in the Yucatan region. C. Geologists knew that there had been an impact before they knew where it had occurred. D. The Yucatan region was chosen by geologists as the most probable impact site because of its climate. 4. According to paragraph 3, how did scientists determine that a large meteorite had impacted Earth? A. They discovered a large crater in the Yucatan region of Mexico. B. They found a unique layer of sediment worldwide. C. They were alerted by archaeologists who had been excavating in the Yucatan region. D. They located a meteorite with a mass of over 1 trillion tons. 5. According to paragraph 4, all of the following statements are true of the impact at the end of the Cretaceous.
Period except A. A large amount of dust blocked sunlight from Earth. B. Earth became cold and dark for several months. C. New elements were formed in Earth's crust. D. Large quantities of nitric acid were produced. 6. The word perspective on line 34 is closest in meaning to A. Sensophilus, B. Point of view, C. Calculation, D. Complicatio. 7. Paragraph 6 supports which of the following statements about the factors that are essential for the survival of a species? A. The most important factor for the survival of a species is its ability to compete and adapt to gradual changes in its environment. B. The ability of a species to compete and adapt to a gradually changing environment is not the only ability that is essential for survival. C. Since many extinctions of species are due to major meteorite impacts, the ability to survive such impacts is the most important factor for the survival of a species. D. The factors that are most important for the survival of a species vary significantly from one species to another. 8. Which of the sentences below best expresses the essential information in the following sentence? Earth is a target in a cosmic shooting gallery, subject to random violent events that were unsuspected a few decades ago. Incorrect choices change the meaning in important ways or leave out essential information. A. Until recently, nobody realized that Earth is exposed to unpredictable violent impacts from space. B. In the last few decades, the risk of a random violent impact from space has increased. C. Since most violent events on Earth occur randomly, nobody can predict when or where they will happen. D. A few decades ago, Earth became the target of random violent events originating in outer space. 9. Look at the 4 letters A, B, C, and D that indicate where the following sentence could be added to the passage. In paragraph 6,
This is the criterion emphasized by Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection. Where would the sentence best fit? Impacts by meteorites represent one mechanism that could cause global catastrophes and seriously influence the evolution of life all over the planet. According to some estimates, the majority of all extinctions of species may be due to such impacts. B. Such a perspective fundamentally changes our view of biological evolution. C. The standard criterion for the survival of a species is its success in competing with other species and adapting to slowly changing environments. D. Yet an equally important criterion is the ability of a species to survive random global ecological catastrophes due to impacts. Choose the place where the sentence fits best. A. Option A. B. Option B. C. Option C. D. Option D. 0. An introductory sentence for a brief summary of the passage is provided below. Complete the summary by selecting the 3 answer choices that express the most important ideas in the passage. Some sentences do not belong in the summary because they express ideas that are not presented in the passage or are minor ideas in the passage. This question is worth 2 points. Write your answer choices in the spaces where they belong. You can write in the number of the answer choice or the whole sentence. Answer choices. 1. Scientists had believed for centuries that meteorite activity influenced evolution on Earth. 2. The site of the large meteorite impact at the end of the Cretaceous period was identified in 1990. 3. There have also been large meteorite impacts on the surface of the Moon, leaving craters like Tycho. 4. An iridium-enriched sediment layer and a large impact crater in the Yucatan provide evidence that a large meteorite struck Earth about 65 million years ago. 5. Large meteorite impacts, such as one at the end of the Cretaceous period, can seriously affect climate, ecological niches, plants, and animals.
6. Meteorite impacts can be advantageous for some species, which thrive, and disastrous for other species, which become extinct. Listening section. Directions. The listening section measures your ability to understand conversations and lectures in English. In this sample, you will read a conversation and a lecture and answer questions after each. The questions typically ask about the main idea and supporting details. Some questions ask about a speaker's purpose or attitude. Answer the questions based on what is stated or implied by the speakers. Most questions are worth 1 point. If a question is worth more than 1 point, it will have special directions that indicate how many points you can receive. On the real test, you will be able to take notes while you listen to the audio, and you may use your notes to help you answer the questions. Your notes will not be scored. You will be given 3 lectures and 2 conversations to listen to, each with 5 to 6 questions to answer. This should take you approximately 36 minutes to complete. Campus conversation, audio transcript. Listen to a conversation between a student and her basketball coach and then answer the questions. Male coach. Hi, Elizabeth. Female student. Hey, coach. I just thought I'd stop by to see what I missed while I was gone. Male coach. Well, we've been working real hard on our plan for the next game. I've asked Susan to go over it with you before. Practice this afternoon, so you'll know what we're doing. Female student. Okay. Male coach. By the way, how did your brother's wedding go? Female student. Oh, it was beautiful. And the whole family was there. I saw aunts and uncles and cousins I hadn't seen in years. Male coach. So it was worth the trip. Female student. Oh, definitely. I'm sorry I had to miss practice, though. I feel bad about that. Male coach. Family's very important. Female student. Yep. Okay, I guess I'll see you this afternoon at practice, then. Male coach. Just a minute. There are a couple of other things I need to tell you. Female student. Oh, okay. Male coach. First, everybody's getting a new team jacket. Female student. Wow. How did that happen? Male coach. A woman who played here about 25 years ago came through town a few weeks ago and saw a game, and said she wanted to do something for the team, so. Female student. So she's buying us new jackets? Male coach. Yep. Sample questions. Email student. Wow, that's really nice of her. Male coach. Yes, it is. It's great that former players still care so much about our school and our basketball program. Anyway, you need to fill out an order form. I'll give it to you now, and you can bring it back this afternoon. I've got the forms from the other players, so as soon as I get yours we can order. Maybe we'll have the jackets by the next game. Female student. Okay.
Male coach. Great. And the next thing is, Mary's transferring to another college next week, so we'll need someone to take over her role as captain for the second half of the season. And the other players unanimously picked you to take over as captain when Mary leaves. Female student. Wow. I saw everybody this morning, and nobody said a word. Male coach. They wanted me to tell you. So do you accept? Female student. Of course. But Susan's a much better player than I am. I'm really surprised they didn't pick her. Male coach. They think you're the right one. You'll have to ask them their thoughts. Female student. Okay. I guess one of the first things I'll have to do as captain is make sure we get a thank you card out to the lady who's buying us the jackets. Male coach. Good idea. I have her address here somewhere. Female student. And I'll make sure the whole team signs it. Male coach. Good. That's all the news there is. I think that's it for now. Oh, let me get you that order form. 1. What are the speakers mainly discussing? A. How the woman should prepare for the next game. B. The woman's responsibilities as team captain. C. Things that happened while the woman was away. D. The style of the new team uniform. Who is buying new jackets for the team? A. The coach. B. The captain of the team. C. A former player. D. A group of basketball fans. 3. There are 2 answers for the next question. Mark 2 answers. Why is the woman surprised to learn that she has been chosen as the new team captain? A. She is not the best player on the team. B. Her teammates did not tell her about the decision. C. She does not have many friends on the team. D. She has missed a lot of practices. 4. Read part of the conversation again. Then answer the question. Female student. I'm sorry I had to miss practice though. I feel bad about that. Male coach. Family's very important. 5. What does the man mean when he says, family's very important? A. He hopes the woman's family is doing well. B. He would like to meet the woman's family. C. The woman should spend more time with her family. D. The woman had a good reason for missing practice. 6. Why does the coach say, good? That's all the news there is. I think that's it for now. A. He wants to know if the woman understood his point. B. He wants the woman to act immediately. C. He is preparing to change the topic. D. He is ready to end the conversation. Sample questions. Academic lecture. Audio transcript. Listen to part of a lecture in a literature class. Male professor. Today I'd like to introduce you to a novel that some critics consider the finest detective novel ever written. It was also the first. We're talking about The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. Now, there are other detective stories that preceded The Moonstone historically, notably the work of Poe. Edgar Allan Poe's stories, such as The Murders in the Rue Morgue and The Purloined Letter. Now these were short stories that featured a detective. Probably the first to do that. But The Moonstone, which follows them by about 20 years, it was published in 1868. This is the first full-length detective novel ever written.
Now, in The Moonstone, if you read it as come to it as a contemporary reader, what's interesting is that most of the features you find in almost any detective novel are in fact already present. It's hard at this juncture to read this novel and realize that no one had ever done that before, because it all seems so strikingly familiar. It's really a wonderful novel, and I recommend it, even just as a fun book to read, if you've never read it. So in The Moonstone, as I said, Collins did much to establish the conventions of the detective genre. I'm not gonna go into the plot at length. But, you know, the basic setup is there's this diamond of great value, a country house, the diamond mysteriously disappears in the middle of the night. The local police are brought in an attempt to solve the crime. And they mess it up completely, and then the true hero of the book arrives. That's Sergeant Cuff. Now, Cuff, this extraordinarily important character, well, let me try to give you a sense of who Sergeant Cuff is by first describing the regular police. And this is the dynamic that you're going to see throughout the history of the detective novel, where you have the regular cops who are well-meaning but officious and bumblingly inept, and they are countered by a figure who's eccentric, analytical, brilliant, and able to solve the crime. So, first the regular police get called in to solve the mystery. In this case, Detective, Superintendent Seagrave. When Superintendent Seagrave comes in, he orders his minions around, they bumble, and they actually make a mess of the investigation, which you'll see repeated. You'll see this pattern repeated, particularly in the Sherlock Holmes stories of a few years later where, Inspector Lestrade, this well-meaning idiot, is always countered, by Sherlock Holmes, who's a genius.
So, now Cuff arrives. Cuff is the man who's coming to solve the mystery, and again he has a lot of the characteristics that future detectives throughout the history of this genre will have. He's eccentric. He has a hobby that he's obsessive about. In his case, it's the love of roses. He's a fanatic about the breeding of roses, and here think of Nero Wolfe and his orchids, Sherlock Holmes and his violin. A lot of those later classic detective heroes have this kind of outside interest that they go to as a kind of antidote to the evil and misery they encounter in their daily lives. At one point, Cuff says he likes his roses because they offer solace, an escape from the world of crime he typically operates in. Now, these detective heroes, they have this characteristic of being smart, incredibly smart, but of not appearing to be smart. And most importantly, from a kind of existential point of view, these detectives see things that other people do not see. And that's why the detective is such an important figure, I think, in our modern imagination. In the case of The Moonstone, I don't want to say too much here and spoil it for you, but the clue that's key to the solving of the crime is a smeared bit of paint in a doorway. Of course, the regular police have missed this paint smear or made some sort of unwarranted assumption about it. Cuff sees this smear of paint, the place where the paint is smeared, and realizes that from this one smear of paint you can actually deduce the whole situation, the whole world. And that's what the hero in a detective novel like this brings to it that the other characters don't. It's this ability to see meaning where others see no meaning, and to bring order to where it seems there is no order.
1. What is the lecture mainly about? A comparison of two types of detective novels. B. Ways in which detective novels have changed over time. C. The Moonstone as a model for later detective novels. D. Flaws that can be found in the plot of The Moonstone. 2. In what way is The Moonstone different from earlier works featuring a detective? In its unusual ending. B. In its unique characters. C. In its focus on a serious crime. D. In its greater length. 3. According to the professor, what do roses in The Moonstone represent? A key clue that leads to the solving of the mystery. B. A relief and comfort to the detective. C. Romance between the main characters. D. Brilliant ideas that occur to the detective. 4. Why does the professor mention a smeared bit of paint in a doorway in the Moonstone? To describe a mistake that Sergeant Cuff has made. B. To show how realistically the author describes the crime scene. C. To exemplify a pattern repeated in many other detective stories. D. To illustrate the superior techniques used by the police. 5. What can be inferred about the professor when he says this? It's hard at this juncture to read this novel and realize that no one had ever done that before because it all seems so strikingly familiar. A. He is impressed by the novel's originality. B. He is concerned that students may find the novel difficult to read. C. He is bored by the novel's descriptions of ordinary events. D. He is eager to write a book about a less familiar subject. 6. What does the professor imply when he says this? Well, let me try to give you a sense of who Sergeant Cuff is by first describing the regular police. Sergeant Cuff is unlike other characters in the Moonstone. B. The author's description of Sergeant Cuff is very realistic. C. Sergeant Cuff learned to solve crimes by observing the regular police. D. Differences between Sergeant Cuff and Sherlock Holmes are hard to decrib.
Speaking section. Directions. The speaking section measures your ability to speak about a variety of topics. The first question is an independent speaking task where you will be required to draw entirely on your own ideas, opinions, and experiences when you respond. Questions 2 to 4 are integrated speaking tasks where you will be asked to combine your English language skills. Listening and speaking, or listening, reading and speaking, just as you would in or out of a classroom. In an actual test, you would be able to take notes while you read and while you listen to the talks. You would be able to use your notes to help prepare your responses. Preparation and response times for an actual test are noted in this text. Test takers with disabilities may request time extensions. Accommodations must be approved by ETS before you register for the test. The speaking section should take approximately 16 minutes to complete. The speaking scoring guides used to score actual responses can be found in Appendix 3. Question 1. Independent speaking. Some people think it is more fun to spend time with friends in restaurants or cafes. Others think it is more fun to spend time with friends at home. Which do you think is better? Explain why. Preparation time, 15 seconds. Response time, 45 seconds. Question 2. Integrated speaking, campus-related topic. State University plans to build a new auditorium. Read an article about the plan in the campus newspaper. Reading time on the real test would be 45 to 50 seconds.
Question 2 Reading passage. University to build new auditorium. The university has decided to demolish the old campus auditorium and replace it with a new one. The auditorium is one of the oldest original buildings on campus, and administrators say it is showing signs of its age. Sagging floors, peeling paint, a drafty interior and outdated decor. The new auditorium by contrast will have a clean modern appearance. Also, the old auditorium is too small to accommodate the number of current students. The new auditorium will be bigger, with a greater number of seats to accommodate a larger student body. Question 2 Conversation transcript. Now read the conversation. Then answer the question. Male student. I wish they wouldn't do this. Female student. Really? But the place is so old. Male student. Yeah, but I like that. I think it's a nice historic-looking building. Female student. Well, I guess it's kinda pretty. Male student. It's an important part of the university's history. It was one of the first things built on campus. We should preserve that. Not get rid of it. Female student. That's a good point. But what about the need for an expansion? Male student. I don't think it's necessary. Female student. But it was built when the university was so much smaller. Male student. That's true, but think about it. Have you ever seen the space completely full? Female student. Well, no, I guess not. Male student. Me either. There are never any events when the entire student body is there. In fact, there are usually just a small number of students in the audience for a play or a concert. Female student. That's true.
Male student. So why make it bigger, if it works as is? Female student. I see what you mean. Male student. I mean, there isn't much to do on campus besides go to the movies. If there were other forms of, recreation, or other social activities, you know, I don't think most students would have said that going to the movies was their first choice. Question 2 task. The man expresses his opinion of the university's plan. State his opinion, and explain the reasons he gives for holding that opinion. Preparation time, 30 seconds. Response time, 60 seconds. Question 3, integrated speaking, academic topic. Read a passage from a psychology textbook and the lecture that follows it. Then answer the question. Reading time. On the real test would be 45 to 50 seconds. Question 3, reading passage. Flow. In psychology, the feeling of complete and energized focus in an activity is called flow. People who enter a state of flow lose their sense of time and have a feeling of great satisfaction. They become completely involved in an activity for its own sake rather than for what may result from the activity, such as money or prestige. Contrary to expectation. Flow usually happens not during relaxing moments of leisure and entertainment, but when we are actively involved in a difficult enterprise, in a task that stretches our mental or physical abilities.
Question 3, lecture transcript. Male professor. I think this will help you get a picture of what your textbook is describing. I had a friend who taught in the physics department, Professor Jones. He retired last year. Anyway, I remember, this was a few years ago. I remember passing by a classroom early one morning just as he was leaving, and he looked terrible. His clothes were all rumpled. And he looked like he hadn't slept all night. And I asked if he was okay. I was surprised when he said that he never felt better, that he was totally happy. He had spent the entire night in the classroom working on a mathematics puzzle. He didn't stop to eat dinner, he didn't stop to sleep, or even rest. He was that involved in solving the puzzle. And it didn't even have anything to do with his teaching or research. He had just come across this puzzle accidentally, I think in a mathematics journal, and it just really interested him, so he worked furiously all night and covered the blackboards in the classroom with equations and numbers and never realized that time was passing by. Question 3 task. Explain flow and how the example used by the professor illustrates the concept. Preparation time, 30 seconds. Response time, 60 seconds. Question 4, integrated writing, academic topic. Read part of a lecture in a biology course. Then answer the question. Question 4, lecture transcript. Female professor.
Human beings aren't the only animals that use tools. It's generally recognized that other animals use tools as well. Use them naturally in the wild, without any human instruction. But when can we say that an object is a tool? Well, it depends on your definition of a tool. And in fact, there are two competing definitions, a narrow definition and a broad one. The narrow definition says that a tool is an object that's used to perform a specific task, but not just any object. To be a tool, according to the narrow definition, the object's gotta be purposefully changed or shaped by the animal or human so that it can be used that way. It's an object that's made. Wild chimpanzees use sticks to dig insects out of their nests, but most sticks lying around won't do the job. They might be too thick, for example. So the sticks have to be sharpened so they'll fit into the hole in an anthill or the insect nest. The chimp pulls off the leaves and chews the stick and trims it down that way until it's the right size. The chimp doesn't just find the stick. You could say it makes it in a way. But the broad definition says an object doesn't have to be modified to be considered a tool. The broad definition says a tool is any object that's used to perform a specific task. For example, an elephant will sometimes use a stick to scratch its back. It just picks up a stick from the ground and scratches its back with it. It doesn't modify the stick, it uses it just as it's found. And it's a tool under the broad definition, but under the narrow definition it's not. Because, well, the elephant doesn't change it in any way. Question 4 task. Using points and examples from the talk, describe the 2 different definitions of tools given by the professor. Preparation time, 20 seconds. Response time, 60 seconds. Writing section. Directions. The writing section measures your ability to write in English in an academic environment. There are 2 writing tasks, and this section should take approximately 29 minutes to complete. For the first task in this sample, you will read a passage and part of a lecture about an academic topic. Then, you will write a response to a question that asks you about the relationship between the reading passage and the lecture. Try to answer the question as completely as possible using information from both the reading passage and the lecture. The question does not ask you to express your personal opinion. On the real test, your response will be judged on the quality of your writing and on how well your response presents the points in the lecture and their relationship to the reading passage. On the real test, you will have 20 minutes to complete this task. For the second task, you will write a post that contributes to an online academic discussion. The discussion has been initiated by a professor's question, and 2 classmates have already contributed their opinions. You can refer to or engage with the classmates' posts or introduce your own new ideas to the discussion. Your answer must be relevant to the question and clearly contribute in your own words. On the real test, you will have 10 minutes to complete this task. At the end of this section, you will find 2 sample test taker responses for each question, the score they received, and an explanation of how they were scored. On the real test, you will be able to take notes while you listen, and you may use your notes to help you answer the questions. Question 1. Integrated writing. Read the following passage. You will have 20 minutes to plan and write your response. Typically, an effective response will be 150 to 225 words. Question 1. Reading passage.
Critics say that current voting systems used in the United States are inefficient and often lead to the inaccurate counting of votes. Miscounts can be especially damaging if an election is closely contested. Those critics would like the traditional systems to be replaced with far more efficient and trustworthy computerized voting systems. In traditional voting, one major source of inaccuracy is that people accidentally vote for the wrong candidate. Voters usually have to find the name of their candidate on a large sheet of paper containing many names, the ballot, and make a small mark next to that name. People with poor eyesight can easily mark the wrong name. The computerized voting machines have an easy-to-use touchscreen technology. To cast a vote, a voter needs only to touch the candidate's name on the screen to record a vote for that candidate. Voters can even have the computer magnify the name for easier viewing. Another major problem with old voting systems is that they rely heavily on people to count the votes. Officials must often count up the votes one by one, going through every ballot and recording the vote. Since they have to deal with thousands of ballots, it is almost inevitable that they will make mistakes. If an error is detected, a long and expensive recount has to take place. In contrast, computerized systems remove the possibility of human error since all the vote counting is done quickly and automatically by the computers. Finally, some people say it is too risky to implement complicated voting technology nationwide. But without giving it a thought, governments and individuals alike trust other complex computer technology every day to be perfectly accurate in banking transactions as well as in the communication of highly sensitive information. Question 1. Lecture transcript. Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about. Female professor.
While traditional voting systems have some problems, it's doubtful that computerized voting will make the situation any better. computerized voting may seem easy for people who are used to computers. But what about people who aren't? People who can't afford computers, people who don't use them on a regular basis, these people will have trouble using computerized voting machines. These voters can easily cast the wrong vote or be discouraged from voting altogether because of fear of technology. Furthermore, it's true that humans make mistakes when they count up ballots by hand. But are we sure that computers will do a better job? After all, computers are programmed by humans, so human error can show up in mistakes in their programs. And the errors caused by these defective programs may be far more serious. The worst a human official can do is miss a few ballots. But an error in a computer program can result in thousands of votes being miscounted or even permanently removed from the record. And in many voting systems, there is no physical record of the votes, so a computer recount in the case of a suspected error is impossible. As for our trust of computer technology for banking and communications, remember one thing: these systems are used daily and they are used heavily. They didn't work flawlessly when they were first introduced. They had to be improved on until they got as reliable as they are today. But voting happens only once every 2 years nationally in the United States and not much more than twice a year in many local areas. This is hardly sufficient for us to develop confidence that computerized voting can be fully trusted. Sample question. Question 1 task. Summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they oppose specific points made in the reading passage. Question 2. Writing for an academic discussion. Read the professor's question to the class below. Write a post responding to the professor's question. In your response, you should express and support your personal opinion and make a contribution to the class discussion. You will have 10 minutes to plan, write, and revise your response. Professor, when people are asked about the most important discoveries or inventions made in the last 200 years, they usually mention something very obvious, like the computer or the cell phone. But there are thousands of other discoveries or inventions that have had a huge impact on how we live today. What scientific discovery or technological invention from the last 200 years, other than computers and cell phones, would you choose as being important? Why? Student 1, Paul, we're so used to science and technology that we are not even aware of all the things we use in our daily lives. I would probably choose space satellites. This technology happened in the last 100 years, and it has become important for so many things. Just think about navigation, or telecommunications, or even the military. Student 2, Claire, I am thinking about medical progress. Like, for example, when scientists discovered things about healthy nutrition. I am thinking of identifying all the vitamins we need to stay healthy. I am not sure exactly when the vitamin discoveries happened, but I know they are very important. Our health is much better than it was 200 years ago. Question 2 task. Write a post responding to the professor's question. An effective response will contain at least 100-word ample responses. Below are test takers' responses exemplifying scores of 5 and 4 for both writing tasks. The scoring guides used to score actual responses can be found in Appendix 4. Question 1, Response A, score of 5.
The lecture explained why the computerized voting system cannot replace the traditional voting system. There are the following 3 reasons. First of all, not everyone can use computers correctly. Some people do not have access to computers. Some people are not used to computers, and some people are even scared of this new technology. If the voters do not know how to use a computer, how do you expect them to finish the voting process through computers? This directly refutes the reading passage, which states that computerized voting is easier by just touching the screen. Secondly, computers may make mistakes as the people do. As computers are programmed by the human beings, Thus, errors are inevitable in the computer system. Problems caused by computer voting systems may be more serious than those caused by people. A larger number of votes might be miscounted or even removed from the system. Furthermore, it would take more energy to recount the votes. Again, this contradicts what is stated in the reading, which stated that only people will make mistakes in counting. Thirdly, computerized voting system is not reliable because it has not reached a stable status. People trust computers to conduct banking transactions because the computerized banking system is being used daily and frequently and has been stable. However, the voting does not happen as often as banking, thus the computerized voting system has not been proved to be totally reliable. All in all, not everyone can use a computer properly. Computer-caused mistakes and computerized voting system is not reliable are the main reasons why computerized voting system cannot replace the traditional voting system. Score explanation. This response is well organized, selects the important information from all 3 points made in the lecture, and explains its relationship to the claims made in the reading passage about the advantages of computerized voting over traditional voting methods. First, it counters the argument that computerized voting is more user-friendly and prevents distortion of the vote by saying that many voters find computers unfamiliar and some voters may end up not voting at all. Second, it challenges the argument that computerized voting will result in fewer miscounts by pointing out that programming errors may result in large-scale miscounts and that some errors may result in the loss of voting records. Third, it rejects the comparison of computerized voting with computerized banking by pointing out that the reliability of computerized banking reached a stable status has been achieved through frequent use, which does not apply to voting. There are occasional minor language errors. For example, people not used of computers miscounted computer cause mistakes and the poor syntax of the last sentence. All in all, some spelling errors are obviously typos. The errors, however, are not at all frequent and do not result in unclear or inaccurate representation of the content. The response meets all the criteria for the score of 5. Sample questions.
Question 1, Response B, score of 4. The lecturer disagreed with the article's opinions. It's not a better solution to use the computerized voting systems. Firstly, it might be hard for the voters who don't use the computer so often, or the users who has fear of the technology. Even some off-voters cannot afford a computer. Touchscreen may also be hard to use for people who is not familiar with computers. Secondly, computer is programmed by human beings, which means it can also have errors. Instead of human beings counting error, which only results 1 or 2 counting error in number, an error in the program code could cause tremendous error in number. In case of the computer crash or disaster, it may lost all the voting information. We cannot even to make a recount. Lastly, our daily banking or other highly sensitive information system is actually improved as time goes by. They were also problematic at the beginning. As we use them so often, we have more chances to find problems and furthermore, to fix and improve them. However, for the voting system, we only use them every 2 years nationally and some other rare events. We just don't use it often enough to find a bug or test thoroughly. Score explanation. The response selects most of the important information from the lecture and indicates that it challenges the main argument in the reading passage about the advantages of computerized voting systems. It's not a better solution. First, the response explains that some people will not find computers to be user-friendly. However, it fails to relate this clearly to the point made in the passage that computerized voting will prevent distortion of the vote. That is clearly an omission, but it is minor. Second, the response does a good job of pointing out how programming and errors can cause greater problems than miscounts cause in the traditional voting system.
Third, the response provides a nice explanation of how the frequent use of systems like the banking system has contributed to such systems' reliability, and then it contrasts that with the computerized voting system. There are more frequent language errors throughout the response. For example, users who is fear, some of voters cannot afford, people who is not familiar, it may lost, and cannot even to make. Expressions chosen by the writer. occasionally affect the clarity of the content that is being conveyed, results 1 or 2 counting error in number. An error in the program code could cause tremendous error in number, and use them every 2 years. Nationally and some other rare events. However, it should be noted that in these cases, a reader can derive the intended meaning from the context. Due to the more frequent language errors that on occasion result in minor lapses of clarity and due to minor content omission, especially in the coverage of the first lecture point, the response cannot earn the score of 5. At the same time, since the language errors are generally minor and mostly do not interfere with the clarity of the content, and since most of the important information from the lecture is covered by the writer, the response deserves a higher score than 3. It meets the criteria for the score of 4. Question 2, Response A, score of 5. I agree with Claire, medical progress is defiantly one of the best inventions in the last 200 years. However, a big reason why we are able to be healthy is not merely because of medicine. I think sewage systems are the most important invention. In the 19th century, with growing urban populations and pollution, all cities at that time had bad sewer systems. The cities were dirty, smelly, and grounds for diseases. Proper sewage management meant that the citizens could live healthier, pollution-free lives. Moreover, many diseases like cholera could be avoided more effectively. Hence, improving general health and life standards. Score explanation. This is a 5-level response. It successfully contributes to the discussion by picking up on Claire's point about medical progress. There is considerable elaboration on Claire's point in the explanation of how the development of urban sanitation systems have contributed to overall health. Although there is an error in the last sentence, as written, it is a fragment, syntactic complexity and accurate vocabulary contribute to a clear explanation of the importance of sanitary engineering. Question 2, Response B, score of 4. From my personal point of view, I think the most important invention is the light bulb. Before it was invented, people had to use candles for illumination in the evening. Its performance is not very stable, and it is produced really high temperature which would probably lead to a fire accident. Light bulbs, however, produce constant and bright lighting at nights. One light bulb could use for several years, which is quite convenient. People don't need to storage many bulbs. What's more, it is safer than past candles. This is a huge progress in technology, and I consider it as the most vital invention from the last 200 years.
Score explanation. This 4-level response, a generally successful contribution, doesn't rise to the 5-level descriptor of almost no lexical or grammatical errors, e.g., have to use, it is produce, one light bulb could use, don't need to storage. It nevertheless employs a variety of syntactic structures and word choice that are often, though not always, appropriate. Most ideas are adequately elaborated and easily understood. It's clear why the writer thinks the light bulb is the most important invention, e.g., it's safe, and it lasts a long time, as expected for a 4-level response. Appendix 2-5. Following are sample score reports, scoring guides, additional sample writing topics, as well as a bonus notes section. Appendix 2, Sample Score Report. Here's a sample score report. It includes scaled scores for all 4 sections in addition to my best scores. Appendix 3. Scoring Guides, Speaking. These are the scoring guides for the speaking section. Scoring Guide for Independent Speaking. Question 1. Score. 4. General description. The response fulfills the demands of the task, with at most minor lapses in completeness. It is highly intelligible and exhibits sustained, coherent discourse. A response at this level is characterized by all of the following. Delivery. Generally well-paced flow, fluid expression. Speech is clear. It may include minor lapses, or minor difficulties with pronunciation or intonation patterns, which do not affect overall intelligibility. Language use. The response demonstrates effective use of grammar and vocabulary. It exhibits a fairly high degree of automaticity with good control of basic and complex structures, as appropriate. Some minor, or systematic, errors are noticeable but do not obscure meaning. Topic development. Response is sustained and sufficient to the task. It is generally well developed and coherent, relationships between ideas are clear, or there is a clear progression of ideas. Score. 3. General description. The response addresses the task appropriately but may fall short of being fully developed. It is generally intelligible and coherent, with some fluidity of expression, though it exhibits some noticeable lapses in the expression of ideas. A response at this level is characterized by at least two of the following. Delivery. Speech is generally clear, with some fluidity of expression, though minor difficulties with pronunciation, intonation, or pacing are noticeable and may require listener effort at times, though overall intelligibility is not significantly affected.
Language use. The response demonstrates fairly automatic and effective use of grammar and vocabulary, and fairly coherent expression of relevant ideas. Response may exhibit some imprecise or inaccurate use of vocabulary or grammatical structures, or be somewhat limited in the range of structures used. This may affect overall fluency, but it does not seriously interfere with the communication of the message. Topic development. Response is mostly coherent and sustained, and conveys relevant ideas/information. Overall development is somewhat limited, usually lacks elaboration or specificity. Relationships between ideas may at times not be immediately clear. Score. 2. General description. The response addresses the task, but development of the topic is limited. It contains intelligible speech, although problems with delivery and or overall coherence occur, meaning may be obscured in places. A response at this level is characterized by at least two of the following. Delivery. Speech is basically intelligible, though listener effort is needed because of unclear articulation, awkward intonation, or choppy rhythm/pace, meaning may be obscured in places. Language use. The response demonstrates limited range and control of grammar and vocabulary. These limitations often prevent full expression of ideas. For the most part, only basic sentence structures are used successfully and spoken with fluidity. Structures and vocabulary may express mainly simple, short, and/or general propositions, with simple or unclear connections made among them, serial listing, conjunction, juxtaposition. Topic development. The response is connected to the task, though the number of ideas presented or the development of ideas is limited. Mostly basic ideas are expressed with limited elaboration, details, and support. At times relevant substance may be vaguely expressed or repetitious. Connections of ideas may be unclear. Score. 1.
General description. The response is very limited in content and/or coherence, or is only minimally connected to the task, or speech is largely unintelligible. A response at this level is characterized by at least two of the following. Delivery. Consistent pronunciation, stress, and intonation difficulties cause considerable listener effort. Delivery is choppy, fragmented, or telegraphic, frequent pauses and hesitations. Language use. Range and control of grammar and vocabulary severely limit or prevent expression of ideas and connections among ideas. Some low-level responses may rely heavily on practiced or formulaic expressions. Topic development. Limited relevant content is expressed. The response generally lacks substance beyond expression of very basic ideas. Speaker may be unable to sustain speech to complete the task, and may rely heavily on repetition of the prompt. KS. Score. 0. Speaker makes no attempt to respond or response is unrelated to the topic. And Scoring Guide for Integrated Speaking. Questions 2, 3, and 4. UPDA. Score. 4. General description. The response fulfills the demands of the task, with at most minor lapses in completeness. It is highly intelligible and exhibits sustained, coherent discourse. A response at this level is characterized by all of the following. TV. Delivery. Speech is generally clear, fluid, and sustained. It may include minor lapses or minor difficulties with pronunciation or intonation. Pace may vary at times as the speaker attempts to recall information. Overall intelligibility remains high. Language use. The response demonstrates good control of basic and complex grammatical structures that allow for coherent, efficient, automatic expression of relevant ideas. Contains generally effective word choice. Though some minor or systematic errors or imprecise use may be noticeable, they do not require listener effort or obscure meaning. Topic development. The response presents a clear progression of ideas and conveys the relevant information required by the task. It includes appropriate detail, though it may have minor errors or minor omissions. Clisto. Score. 3. General description. The response addresses the task appropriately, but may fall short of being fully developed. It is generally intelligible and coherent, with some fluidity of expression, though it exhibits some noticeable lapses in the expression of ideas. A response at this level is characterized by at least two of the following. H. Delivery. Speech is generally clear, with some fluidity of expression, but it exhibits minor difficulties with pronunciation, intonation, or pacing and may require some listener effort at times. Overall intelligibility remains good, however. Language use. The response demonstrates fairly automatic and effective use of grammar and vocabulary, and fairly coherent expression of relevant ideas. Response may exhibit some imprecise or inaccurate use of vocabulary or grammatical structures, or be somewhat limited in the range of structures used. Such limitations do not seriously interfere with the communication of the message. Topic development. The response is sustained and conveys relevant information required by the task. However, it exhibits some incompleteness, inaccuracy, lack of specificity with respect to content, or choppiness in the progression of ideas. Score. 2. General description. The response is connected to the task, though it may be missing some relevant information or contain inaccuracies. It contains some intelligible speech, but at times problems with intelligibility and/or overall coherence may obscure meaning. A response at this level is characterized by at least two of the following. Delivery. Speech is clear at times, though it exhibits problems with pronunciation, intonation, or pacing, and so may require significant listener effort. Speech may not be sustained at a consistent level throughout. Problems with intelligibility may obscure meaning in places, but not throughout. Language use. The response is limited in the range and control of vocabulary and grammar demonstrated. Some complex structures may be used, but typically contain errors. This results in limited or vague expression of relevant ideas and imprecise or inaccurate connections. Automaticity of expression may only be evident at the phrasal level. Topic development. The response conveys some relevant information, but is clearly incomplete or inaccurate. It is incomplete if it omits key ideas, makes vague reference to key ideas, or demonstrates limited development of important information. An inaccurate response demonstrates misunderstanding of key ideas from the stimulus. Typically, ideas expressed may not be well connected or cohesive, so that familiarity with the stimulus is necessary to follow what is being discussed. Score. 1. General description. The response is very limited in content or coherence, or is only minimally connected to the task. Speech may be largely unintelligible. A response at this level is characterized by at least two of the following. Delivery. Consistent pronunciation and intonation problems cause considerable listener effort and frequently obscure meaning. Delivery is choppy, fragmented, or telegraphic. Speech contains frequent pauses and hesitations.
Language use. Range and control of grammar and vocabulary severely limit or prevent expression of ideas and connections among ideas. Some very low-level responses may rely on isolated words or short utterances to communicate ideas. Topic development. The response fails to provide much relevant content. Ideas that are expressed are often inaccurate, limited to vague utterances, or repetitions, including repetition of prompt. Core. 0. Speaker makes no attempt to respond or response is unrelated to the topic. Appendix 4. Scoring guides writing. These are the scoring guides for the writing section. Scoring guide for integrated writing. Question 1. Core. 5. Task description. A response at this level successfully selects the important information from the lecture and coherently and accurately presents this information in relation to the relevant information presented in the reading. The response is well organized, and occasional language errors that are present do not result in inaccurate or imprecise presentation of content or connections. Core. 4. Task description. A response at this level is generally good in selecting the important information from the lecture and in coherently and accurately presenting this information in relation to the relevant information in the reading, but it may have minor omission, inaccuracy, vagueness, or imprecision of some content from the lecture or in connection to points made in the reading. A response is also scored at this level if it has more frequent or noticeable minor language errors, as long as such usage and grammatical structures do not result in anything more than an occasional lapse of clarity or in the connection of ideas. Core. 3. Task description. Response at this level contains some important information from the lecture and conveys some relevant connection to the reading, but it is marked by one or more of the following. Although the overall response is definitely oriented to the task, it conveys only vague, global, unclear, or somewhat imprecise connection of the points made in the lecture to points made in the reading. The response may omit one major key point made in the lecture. Some key points made in the lecture or the reading or connections between the two may be incomplete, inaccurate, or imprecise. Errors of usage and/or grammar may be more frequent or may result in noticeably vague expressions or obscured meanings in conveying ideas and connections. Core. 2. Task description. A response at this level contains some relevant information from the lecture, but is marked by significant language difficulties or by significant omission or inaccuracy of important ideas from the lecture or in the connections between the lecture and the reading. A response at this level is marked by one or more of the following. The response significantly misrepresents or completely omits the overall connection between the lecture and the reading. The response significantly omits or significantly misrepresents important points made in the lecture. The response contains language errors or expressions that largely obscure connections or meaning at key junctures, or that would likely obscure understanding of key ideas for a reader not already familiar with the reading and the lecture. Core. 1. Task description. A response at this level is marked by one or more of the following. The response provides little or no meaningful or relevant coherent content from the lecture. The language level of the response is so low that it is difficult to derive meaning. Core. 0. Task description. A response at this level merely copies sentences from the reading, rejects the topic or is otherwise not connected to the topic, is written in a foreign language, consists of keystroke characters or is blank. Scoring guide for writing for an academic discussion. Question 2. Core. 5. Task description. A fully successful response. The response is a relevant and very clearly expressed contribution to the online discussion, and it demonstrates consistent facility in the use of language. A typical response displays the following: irrelevant and well-elaborated explanations, exemplifications, and/or details, or effective use of a variety of syntactic structures and precise, idiomatic word choice. Almost no lexical or grammatical errors other than those expected from a competent writer writing under timed conditions, e.g., common typos or common misspellings or substitutions like there/there. Core. 4.
Task description. A generally successful response. The response is a relevant contribution to the online discussion, and facility in the use of language allows the writer's ideas to be easily understood. A typical response displays the following: relevant and adequately elaborated explanations, exemplifications, and/or details. A variety of syntactic structures and appropriate word choice. Few lexical or grammatical errors. Score. 3. Task description. A partially successful response. The response is a mostly relevant and mostly understandable contribution to the online discussion, and there is some facility in the use of language. A typical response displays the following: elaboration in which part of an explanation, example, or detail may be missing, unclear, or irrelevant. Some variety in syntactic structures and a range of vocabulary. Some noticeable lexical and grammatical errors in sentence structure, word form, or use of idiomatic language. Score. 2. Task description. A mostly unsuccessful response. The response reflects an attempt to contribute to the online discussion, but limitations in the use of language may make ideas hard to follow. A typical response displays the following: ideas that may be poorly elaborated or only partially relevant. A limited range of syntactic structures and vocabulary. An accumulation of errors in sentence structure, word forms, or use. Score. 1. Task description. An unsuccessful response. The response reflects an ineffective attempt to contribute to the online discussion, and limitations in the use of language may prevent the expression of ideas. A typical response may display the following: words and phrases that indicate an attempt to address the task but with few or no coherent ideas. Severely limited range of syntactic structures and vocabulary. Serious and frequent errors in the use of language. Minimal original language. Any coherent language is mostly borrowed from the stimulus.
Score. 0. Task description. The response is blank, rejects the topic, is not in English, is entirely copied from the prompt, is entirely unconnected to the prompt, or consists of arbitrary keystrokes. Appendix 5. Additional writing for an academic discussion topics. These are the scoring guides for the writing section. The following is a list of writing for an academic discussion practice topics. You'll see topics very similar to these on the test. None of the topics requires specialized knowledge. Most topics are general and are based on the common experience of people in general and students in particular. Whatever the topic, you'll be asked to give your opinion and to support your opinion with specific reasons and examples. Sample writing topic list. Population trends in rural versus urban areas. Assessment criteria from teachers, performance versus effort. Think about a global environmental problem and what would be an effective solution. Does taking a gap year before going to university have an advantage or disadvantage? Is it better for cities to leave open spaces for parks or develop them into shopping areas? Is investing in employee training a good or bad way to spend company money? Is it a good idea for children to play educational computer or video games? Why or why not? In the future, do you think people will work more hours per week or less? Explain. Which is a better way to reduce air pollution from cars? More public transportation options, or more electric vehicles? Is it a good idea for governments of small or remote countries to promote tourism in areas not usually visited by tourists? Why or why not? About ETS. At ETS, we advance quality and equity in education for people worldwide by creating assessments based on rigorous research. ETS serves individuals, educational institutions, and government agencies by providing customized solutions for teacher certification, English language learning, and elementary, secondary, and post-secondary education, and by conducting education research, analysis, and policy studies. Founded as a nonprofit in 1947, ETS develops, administers, and scores more than 50 million tests annually, including the TOEFL and TOEIC tests, the GRE tests, and the Praxis Series assessments, in more than 180 countries, at over 9,000 locations worldwide. Copyright 2024 by ETS. GRE, TOEFL, TOEFL iBT and MIBIST are registered trademarks of ETS in the United States and other countries. The 8-point logo and TOEFL Test Ready are trademarks of ETS. All other trademarks are property of their respective owners.